Right.
Okay.
Because then we can put it up on YouTube.
Oh, it says audio and video.
Oh.
So we're recording already.
Okay, wonderful. All right. Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the Vet Tech Taproom. Dave, we're doing a tap room today. The Vet Tech Taproom.
Yes, we are.
Because sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name.
Ah, okay. Good times. Good times.
Yeah. How's it going out there, bud?
Most of our listeners probably do not get that reference because they were not around in the late '80s. Fun fact: the theme song for Cheers was actually my class song.
Oh wow!
In high school,
it's actually kind of a dark song. The lyrics.
Yeah, it really is. I think they like the fact that where everybody knows your name.
Right.
And we had a smaller class. I think our class was like 125-ish, and all the classes around us had like 300. So, anyways, little trip down memory lane.
Yeah, for sure.
Things are going good here. I'm excited for the warmer weather. As you know, I love it hot. Mm-hmm. And it's getting there, so I'm loving it. How are you guys doing out there? I know you're getting ready to be a dad.
Oh yeah, this I guess technically this is the Vet Tech Tap Room and Nursery. If I lower this, I won't bore everybody, but yeah, this my office, which is my little work desk and whatever, is now 90% a nursery, except my little workspace. So yeah, it's getting close. Due date's 2 weeks from Tuesday. Doctor thinks she's going to go early. I think there's already some early signs of development, so we'll see. But kind of a cool thing, again, that I've never seen in veterinary medicine, starting tomorrow with my shift. So 2 weeks before my wife's due date, they start putting on an extra person on my shift in case I go on leave early.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so
that is so smart.
Yeah,
so
smart.
Smart.
Any day between now and her due date, if she goes into labor, they're covered. There's already somebody working my shift, and they're an extra person.
That's great.
It's those little things that it's like, why isn't that more of a thing? That makes so much sense.
I mean, not even just in veterinary medicine, but like
in life, in any
everywhere,
job,
in life.
Yeah.
Why is that not everywhere?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Props to the ASPCA for planning and being smart about it. And you also get paternity leave, which is great.
Yep, I'm taking paternity leave. I'm taking every minute that they're going to give me, which between California, thankfully, where we live, and then also their own time that they allow for, I get 4 months. I get more time than my wife does. So
that's crazy.
I'm taking every moment of it. And so I guess any day
that's
now.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
It's smooth and
thank you.
And no complications.
Yeah.
And keep us all posted on things if that's something you guys are willing to share.
Mm-hmm.
But keep us all posted. We're all rooting for you.
We will. We definitely will. So we've got a couple of episodes in the bank for a little bit of time off. Of course, May, thankfully, coming up. Of course, it wasn't planned this way, but May, all of our mental health episodes, we've already recorded 2 of the 3 of them. We have another one to record a little bit later on in May. Yeah. Some really, really fascinating discussions this year.
I learned a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of all around a central theme of substance use or substance abuse in our field.
What was the term that they gave us?
Substance use disorder. Or substance
use disorder.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was. Yeah.
So, which I think, as we discussed, kind of a lot in these episodes is probably far more common in our field than what we give it credit for.
Yes.
And so we have some really, really fascinating episodes regarding all that.
Yeah, we talked with someone who has been through addiction or substance use disorder, and then we talked with someone who has a loved one that was going through it, and then our last episode, which is going to be the last episode of May, is going to be talking with someone from BetterHelp, one of our sponsors, to someone that specializes in dealing with substance abuse disorder. So
and has worked with people in our field.
Yeah, and I find that great that we're going to be getting it like full circle. We didn't set out to make this all be all about substance abuse, but that's kind of how it kind of all came together.
How it came together.
It was amazing that we, just were able to have these people that are in our circle of listeners and past guests that have been on to kind of go through that.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. And again, the May episodes, I really enjoy talking about those because it's those conversations that we need to have.
Yeah.
They're difficult to have, but we have to have them.
For sure. And you know, I think a key point in there as well is that these are people from our field. You know, they're veterinary technicians that have experienced it. They're veterinary technicians that have lived through it, have gotten help or are going through it or whatever it is. And we're going to talk about it. And they're difficult conversations. They're awkward conversations at times. It's tough, but at the same time, I think that, again, it's far more common than what we realize.
Yeah, and like we said, you're not going to get through it without talking about it, and that's our goal here is to talk about these things and bring them to light and make them. I don't want to say make them normal because that's really not the goal here, but to make it okay to talk about and make it okay to discuss and not like push it off and say, well, that's not going to happen to me. That's not going to happen to anyone in my circle, because it does. Right.
Absolutely. And, you know, one thing I think that we all in this field kind of take pride of to some degree is we're lifelong learners, right? I mean, supposedly. And this is just another thing that we can learn about how to, you know, take care of ourselves, how to take care of our coworkers, how to look out for warning signs, in coworkers, friends, family members, not even necessarily around our profession, but just in our lives. Like, it's just another thing to learn about. And there is a lot, a lot to learn and a lot to talk about. So,
there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot that, you know, you and I said we've learned a lot just talking to the two people we did talk to. And now, you know, at the end of the month, talking to someone who is a professional in dealing with this, I feel like we're going to learn even more about that because, you know, when we were talking with our guests that are coming up, you know, I said I don't have anyone in my circle, but I completely forgot the fact that when I was in college, the girl that I was dating was actually a recovering alcoholic, and, you know, she was going to AA meetings at as a 19-year-old. Where, you know, we think about that and think, how does someone who's still a teenager get addicted?
Right.
And it happens.
Yeah.
And I completely forgot about the fact that I did have somebody that you know, we were together, I don't know, maybe 2 years or so. But, you know, I kind of was there with her while she was kind of going through that process, which is not an easy process to be kind of on the outside looking in, but like, not quite an outsider, but somewhat of an outsider. Yeah. If that makes any sense, it's difficult to watch someone go through that, and it's invigorating to watch somebody heal from that. But it's, you know, as they're kind of going through that, it's very difficult to try and be the person that they lean on. It's really difficult to do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Another difficult week in our profession this past week. Maybe you guys saw on, you know, either through Facebook or what have you, another veterinarian took their life this week by a suicide. And this one hit home a little bit for me. I knew Peter when he was a vet student. He was a V19 or so, 2019 grad at Tufts. So I was working there when he was a student. And to be quite honest, there's not a whole lot of men in vet school. And so they stand out. Not that nobody else does, but, you knew Peter. He had a big beard. He was a quiet, reserved guy, but a really, really smart guy. Really, really good kid. Looked like he was already doing some amazing things as a veterinarian. And, you know, of course, again, you never know what battles somebody's facing, you know, in their private life or what have you. But I was talking to a couple of coworkers this week, just kind of via our group chat. And saying, I was kind of bummed out about it, and they both had shared an experience of somebody that they had worked with previously that in this field that had committed suicide. And one of them said, it's such a terrible thing that so many of us are bound together by knowing somebody that has done that or gone through, it's
trauma.
Right, like a common trauma. And that really kind of struck me, like, that's so true that, it's always hard to hear about or read about. It's always a little bit different when it's, somebody you've known or what have you. But it's sad that so many people in our field have that kind of common experience that they, of somebody that they've known. But, Molly and I were talking about this last night. We went to the Angels game. We were talking about this on the way home because she knew Peter too. He was a class behind her. And it's like, at this point, it's no longer, the shock value is no longer that somebody has taken their life. It's that it's this time somebody it's so frequent. It's no longer like, oh my gosh, this happened, like somebody in our field took their own life. It's that, frankly, to some degree, that shock factor is now minimized. At least for me, it's now more so like who, in this case, being somebody we knew. And it's one of those things that's just, it's so sad that it's so common that it's obviously like we take our due time and it affects a lot of people, but at the same time, it's no longer this, oh my gosh, kind of thing.
And like you said, it's the, maybe a couple years ago, it was somebody in the field, and you say, oh gosh, there's somebody in the field, and then, maybe a year or two ago, it became, oh, somebody that I knows somebody that has taken their life, and now it's going to be the point where it's people we know. And we always say that the field is really small, and the community is so tightly knit, that it's going to be somebody that you're
going to be only a couple degrees of separation away from somebody that knew that person is the reality, whether it was you directly or somebody close by that would have known that person. And I was thinking about this too, and I think I've said this before on a previous Taproom episode or maybe another episode previously, but I think at some point, and maybe it's not actually this way, and that's why we never hear about it, but I think at some point we also need to start talking about the method at which this occurs. Because in our unique profession, we have, frankly, poorly regulated access to controlled substances and lethal drugs. And is it at all a common thing that some, not necessarily all, but some percentage of these veterinary technicians and veterinarians that do this, are they getting drugs from work? Because that's actually something we can make positive change to try to prevent that. And Dave, we talked about, I think, long ago, maybe it was even our episode with Liza or one with Liz. Remember the Four Eyes?
I think it was the one with Liz.
Four Eyes Save Lives. And the idea that a lot of times this is an impulsive decision. It's not a lengthy process of premeditation in a lot of cases. In a lot of cases, it's minutes that this is thought about and carried out. And I'm me personally, it's none of my business how these people are doing this. That's not what I'm getting at. It's not this morbid curiosity. It's more so like, if these can we stop it? Can we figure out a way to intervene? Can the AVMA step in? Can the state VMA step in to make controlled substance access more controlled, if that's actually even a factor? And it very well may be not, and maybe that's why we never hear about it. But I know from my previous clinical experience how how easy it is to access controlled substances. It's not it's always set up and meant to be a two-person thing, 2 keys in the box. The Omnicell, you can set it up to require a second ID and password. A second, but it's never set up that way. And so, how I have to imagine that a huge reason why this happens a lot in our field, obviously all of the stressors, but the ease of which that is carried out, I strongly wonder if it has anything to do with our access to control and lethal drugs. And if so, can we talk about that, and can we start to regulate that a little bit better? Because again, the whole idea of 4 Eyes Saves Lives was just trying to put up some physical barriers to delay that process just enough for people to kind of get out of that state of mind that they're in. And again, maybe this is not something that actually happens. Maybe, this is just logically, to me, makes sense. When somebody is really struggling at the hospital, there's that outlet right there. In so many cases, it's so easy to access and do later at home that night or in the car or whatever it is. And I don't want to disrespect anybody that has lived this, has gone through this, any of the families or anything like that. But at some point, I think it would be hugely beneficial for us as a profession to know how this is actually occurring. And maybe every person does it a little bit different way, and maybe our drugs are not part of the problem. But to me, it's a logical step, and it's a logical question to ask. And is there something there that we can fix and potentially prevent? Obviously,
and I don't know if there's a way to find out stats on that.
I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. I don't even.
And then narrowing it down to the veterinary field.
Right. I don't even know how.
That's a research project I'm not
for
willing
sure
to take on.
And I don't even know how to start that. But I think it's a question worth asking and a discussion worth having, because we always talk about, especially in critical care medicine, we always talk about trends, right? What are the trends?
Yeah.
And is that, and again, it very well may not be a trend, but if it is, I feel like that is something that effectively we can put in some barriers in place to, again, not prevent it. If somebody is really struggling and has been for a long time, they're going to find a way to do that. Right. That's known. That's a known entity. But if it's more of that kind of impulsive situation, and it's a really, really short process for somebody, and all of a sudden they don't have that ease of access to that kind of thing, or at least that to go get that extra dose of euthanasia solution, or go get that extra dose of fentanyl for, a big dog or whatever it may be, that somebody else has to go and verify what's happening. Like, there are potential things that we can do. And again, it's not going to stop it, but I mean, it's one of those scenarios that if we can just prevent it in one person, I mean, then it's...
and I've worked, so as everyone knows, I work relief shifts, and I work in many different practices, and there are varying levels of how serious they take their controlled drugs. There's one practice I work at where you need 2 fingerprints to get it out of the system. And if you are wasting any of that, like if you're not using all your propofol, that has to get recorded back into the system to say, hey, I'm wasting this. And somebody has to actually watch that happen.
Right.
And I also work in practices where I am the one pulling up the controlled drugs, and their drug logs are not great.
Yeah.
And if I were so inclined, it would be very easy for me to do something, and it would be months before they figured it out.
Right.
I think.
Right.
So it, our profession is, like you said, there are regulations in place. Are they followed?
Right. Right. No.
Because who's policing that?
Right. Yeah.
The only people that are policing that are the practices. And if they don't put the effort into saying, hey, we need to take this seriously, it's not taken seriously.
It's policed by somebody who already has too much on their plate. And that's one thing that is very easy to just move aside or do here and there. And I go back to my time at Tufts, and I say this because Peter was a student at Tufts. Anesthesia, as you said, Dave, if they had drugs to waste, leftover induction drugs, whatever, a second person watched the the wasting, or if it was, they were on call at night and they came in for a surgery, one of us in ECC would watch them, waste and spill. But in ECC and especially in ER, in an emergency situation, it was always this huge inconvenience to even go to Omnicell for a controlled substance, let alone for a second person to go. And really it was only the euthanasia solution that required a second, input.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The other controlled substances do not. We didn't have it set up like that. And it was always, just this, I have to go find a second person to be able to sign off on this.
It's so
ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. And it absolutely is. But at the same time, it's really, really not. It's really not that big of a deal. It's really not that hard. Right. And frankly, if it's a huge barrier to have a second person come sign that drug out, whatever it may be, if a huge barrier of that is availability of staff, then you need to look inward and figure out why you have nobody available to do that. That's a simple thing that should be the case. And again, this is a veterinary school. Now, maybe things have changed, or maybe things have changed as a result of this. Obviously, Peter graduated a few years ago, and so maybe not. But it's not like he was an active student at the time that this occurred. But it's something that, knowing how poorly regulated that is in our field, is that actually something that goes on? Right. And me individually, Jeff Backus, I don't need to know how one veterinarian or one veterinary technician took their life. It's none of my business, and I get that. But collectively, I think it needs to be looked at by somebody, by some organization, maybe the AVMA, maybe whoever it is, to look into, is there something here that is potentially preventable? Because that is something, controlled substance use access, for me, that is far too blasé in our field, and that would be an easy layer to
the other options that are available are obviously there, like guns, pills, mixing medications. That is always there, but if it's so much, I don't want to say it's easier, but it's got to be so much easier to just get it out of your controlled drugs at work. That's got to be so much easier.
Right. And I think looking at a lot of the people in our field, I really don't think it's as far as a prevailing method. I really don't think it's guns.
No, I don't think so either.
So again, for me, I think it's that the access to controlled substances, to me, is, if there is a predominant way that this is occurring, for me, that makes the most sense, because it's just so, this isn't a human hospital where you have to go to pharmacy to have it checked out, and it's to the letter, everything is accurate, or at least I assume it's that way. It's not that way in veterinary medicine.
No, and I assume, I don't want to make assumptions here, but I would imagine that veterinarians or technicians or assistants or what have you that work at practice A, they work at this practice. I would imagine that somebody in that practice is saying, how did this happen? Was it something that they got from this hospital? Because if that's the case, they need to know that, because that needs to,
absolutely,
they need to tighten up their regulations. Right. They need to tighten up who has access.
Right.
So I would imagine that if that is the case, even on a very local scale, that is being addressed. Right. But
you would hope so, that this has happened now at this hospital. We are changing the way we do this because we cannot have this happen again. But that hospital, then, it shouldn't be isolated to that hospital. That should be like a sweeping thing that, like, okay, this is actually something that's occurring, and or again, it's very possible that it's not, but I can't think of another way that so many people in our profession could be doing this. Again, I'm not saying everybody has, or
I've heard stories, and I'm sure you have too, about the doctor after hours that hooked himself up to an IV with Fentanyl in it and just sat there and let it happen. And propofol obviously is another thing that could in
fentanyl.
Fentanyl. I would think fentanyl would be more accidental because they're using it for the opioid use. But again, we're speculating on things that we don't really have any business speculating. Right. But there's just so many options. I think that makes it hard. And even like I said, if somebody died by suicide in practice A, you would think that practice B down the road or practice B in that community would say, "Hey, something just happened in our local community. What can we do to fix it?" And not only just we're talking about drug control and controlled substances, but I would think that at some point when that happens, being that it's such a small community, that they're taking steps to say, maybe we need to step up our mental health awareness program, or also, our assistance program, or what have you, to try and at least discuss it and see if there's anything that can be done within their local community. I would think. I
would certainly hope so. So anyway, I think, as so often is the case with something like this, more questions than answers.
Of course.
And there's a lot of layers to it, and this is just one small layer, but we could talk about this till the sun goes down, but
we can talk about it all day.
But I do want to, give my best to Peter's family, to Chelsea. Just a really tragic situation, and again, I just hope that it's as again a field of lifelong learning. I hope that it's not in vain. I think at some point, obviously, we need to give it its due in terms of tragedy and what have you, but I think at some point we also need to start learning a little bit more about the how and the why, and start as a profession, start looking at this a little bit more deeply and trying to get some answers and make some substantial changes.
Yep. Agreed. 100% agreed.
Anyway.
And, we were coming on here to talk about our upcoming episodes and turned it into more of a mental health episode.
Right.
Mental Health Awareness Month is
a week away.
From now.
A week away. Yeah. So
it's still important to talk about that stuff.
Yeah. Speaking of mental health and mental health days, maybe not the appropriate time to say it, but I don't know about you. I have a good beer going right now.
I'm still working on my coffee.
Still working on your coffee. I got this breakfast stout a couple weeks ago when I was in Colorado speaking at the CACVT. I went to one of my favorite breweries, which I'd had their beer before but had never been, and this is from Weldworks in Greeley, Colorado. And this is a blueberry pancake coffee stout, so it's maple, blueberry, and coffee, and it is it pours like motor oil, but it is out of this world. It is blueberry pancakes in a glass. So anyway,
I would be okay without the blueberry. Like we've had some of that. There's one that's like a French toast beer that you and I have had together. The maple part of it, the sticky sweetness of it is good. I draw the line at fruit. Yeah, unless we're talking about my summer shandy with the lemonade and beer combo. That's the extent of my fruitness in beer.
Yeah,
but
I hear you.
You do you,
I
buddy.
hear you. And on a day off, it's a beautiful day. I'm going to go sit out on the patio and just sit and relax and enjoy my breakfast beer. But yeah, it's a perfect beer for doing a tap room. I've been saving this one, so
there you go. And we're going to upload this tonight, so this will be almost live.
Cheers, caffeinators.
Cheers.
What do you got going on coming up? Anything?
Man, I got so much stuff. I've got some recover trainings that I'm doing. I've got some CE that I'm giving. actually giving a CE at the end of next month for. No, actually, it's this week. For a place out in California that contacted me through one of the webinars that I did for you guys. I'm going back to Austin to do some more training. I got AVMA conference coming up in July. We got IVEX. Oh, and you and I are planning. So I'm going back to Austin twice. Mm-hmm. The first time I go back in June is going to be all lectures. The second time I go back is going to be all wet labs. And you and I are going to actually meet up in Austin and go hit a brewery or two on an extra day. So that's going to be fun. It's going to be good to get to see you again. I haven't seen you in
since September, I guess.
Since IVEX. Yeah.
And I don't know, this year, honestly, if I'll be able to swing IVEX, because that'll be right after I think I go back to work. I'll still have my CE days. So hopefully, and it's in San Antonio, which isn't too far. I mean, it's obviously halfway across the country, but it's not all the way across the country. So maybe I can go for like 2 nights or something, but I just don't know if I'll be able to swing it. But yeah, we'll get to meet in Austin, kind of meet in the middle, and do some Vet Tech Cafe business, and as we kind of figure that out and travel schedule caffeinators, we might have a little meet and greet at a brewery in Austin if you're local to the area.
Oh yeah.
We'd love for you to come by and have a beer. We don't know yet when all that's gonna go down and what have you, but keep your ears peeled, because
if you're listening to this and you're in the Austin area or San Antonio is like maybe an hour or so away from Austin. So if you want to hang out,
we'd love to see you. We'll have some stuff for you. So
yeah.
Anyway, Dave, I think that's all I really had to talk about today. Kind of a lot of heavy topics, but we're heading into a heavy month, and it's a very important month for you and I, and for our podcast, and everything that we do for Mental Health Awareness Month in May. And it just felt appropriate to come on and kind of introduce these episodes, obviously with what's happened recently, talk about that too. And then I know we'll do another tap room at the end and kind of recap it all too, and talk a little bit about what we learned and what have you. So,
and moving into June and all that stuff.
June. We've got, beyond May, we've got a lot of really, really great episodes coming. So a lot of really cool avenues of the profession, a lot of different things. So stay tuned. There's some really great interviews coming. So,
and a lot of them have come from our guests.
Yeah.
I'm really liking the asking for, what do you want us to talk about?
Yeah.
That's
always
been invaluable to us.
Almost always leads to another episode. And I can think of, a couple of people now that, we might be talking to one person who was suggested by somebody else. That person was suggested by somebody else, and then that person was, an original guest. Yeah. And so
pretty soon we're not going to have to come up with any ideas ourselves.
Right. I know. Yeah. So a lot of really cool, but that honestly, like, that's the whole point, right? I mean, you and I don't know all of these people, or all of these things that are going on in our profession. We're only 2 people. We only have the connections that we have. And I think utilizing our guests to highlight other things, like you said, I think it's working out really well, that the episodes are almost coming together on their own, because our guests are suggesting.
All we have to do is just contact the people, and that's it.
Yeah, and it's worked out really well. So some really great. We've got I think we pretty much have everything planned, at least through June, if not July as well. So some really, really great episodes coming, and maybe 1 or 2 well-known veterinary celebrity kind of guests in there as well. So
you're trying to tease people? Is that what you're doing?
A little bit. But the big thing is some really, really important discussions about veterinary technician life and the profession and what have you. So I'm pretty excited about all that.
It's gonna be good.
Yeah. So
me too.
Yeah. All right. Well, caffeinators, I think we'll let all you guys go relax here. Thanks for tuning into the Vet Tech Tap Room. And I think probably next time you hear my voice, I'm going to have a daughter. So,
well, the first episode, the 2 were recorded. You obviously are previously recorded. So by the time the 3rd one comes out in May, you'll be a dad.
Yeah. But I think there's a good chance that by next weekend's episode,
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, it's possible.
Oh, boy.
It's certainly possible. Yeah. So we'll see.
Boy. Well,
We'll see.
Keep us posted.
Yeah, we'll do. All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. You guys be well. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your coworkers. And we'll talk to you guys again soon.
Bye, guys.